محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كافها يا عين صاد. ذكر رحمة ربك عبده زكريا إذ نادى ربه نداء خفيا قال رب إني وهن العظم مني واشتعل الرأس شيبا ولم أكن بدعائك ربي شقيا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وإني خفت الموالي من ورائي وكانت امرأتي عاقرا فهب لي من لدنك وليا يرثني ويرث من آل يعقوب واجعله ربي رضيا. يا زكريا إنا نبشرك بغلام اسمه يحيى لم نجعل له من قبل سميا قال رب أنى يكون لي غلام وكانت امرأتي عاقرا وقد بلغت من الكبر عتيا قال كذلك قال ربك هو علي هين وقد خلقتك من قبل ولم تك شيئا قال رب اجعل لي آية قال آيتك ألا تكلم الناس 3 ليال سويا فخرج على قومه من المحراب فأوحى إليهم أن سبحوا بكرة وعشيا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
We have a special guest tonight, Sheikh Abdurrahman Shirri. This is his first time comes and visit us here. We are very honored to have him. Actually today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, just a reminder, we have Friday's prayers with Sheikh Abdurrahman Shirri. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Samahat al-Shaykh for a lecture tonight after loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. I'm honored to be here at the service of the center and this community, and it is my first time visiting here. Not the city, but the center, of course. And it's very refreshing to see that the community is growing, it's expanding, and to see that there is activism, that there are people who are still attracted to these centers in a world that is plagued in a type of confusion and an inability to center and focus ourselves around any particular truth. So it's wonderful to see everyone here, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue supporting you and strengthening you in this endeavor, inshaAllah, bihaqqi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند الله ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. Do they not contemplate the Quran? If it was from anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they would find that there is a lot of difference in it. Now, this is a claim that the Quran repeatedly makes, that the truth within the Quran is one truth. The reality is one reality. God might speak about the mountains, He might speak about the rivers, He might speak about humans, He might speak about angels, He might speak about an infinite amount of things. But at the end of the day, they all revolve around one truth. They all revolve around one reality. And there's a reason why the Quran comes to make this claim. And if we look at Islam as a religion, we find that the religion is centered upon an idea. This core idea of Islam is Tawheed. It's the main principle of Islam. And Tawheed comes from oneness, the oneness of God. This came as opposed or in opposition to the multiplicity of deities that people used to worship. And Islam came not only to deny the outer deities, which, they were idols that people were worshiping, but it also came to deny what goes beyond that. And that is the gods and the deities that we create within ourselves. So the idea is to look at this multiple world, to look at things that are around us, and they are many, and to be able to tie them to one reality, so that our hearts and souls are not scattered and dispersed and attached to multiple things in this world. If we look at the Quran and how it talks about the people that were before Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't deny that they worshipped Him. Allah says in the Quran, if you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would tell you Allah. Even the kuffar, those who didn't believe in the risala of Rasulullah, the message of the Prophet, they would also say that God, Allah, is the one who created this stuff. But they didn't believe that God was the ultimate and only source for these things. They would worship Him, but they created other deities that allowed them to reach God through them. Every deity, every idol had a specific purpose, and they would reach God through that deity. Islam came to remove those. It wanted us to build this one connection in order to find the absolute reality within us. Now, not too long ago, we had the event of Ghadir. And it was the greatest proclamation that the Prophet made within the religion or the history of Islam. To the point that in our ahadith, that day or that Eid of Al-Ghadir, that celebration is called the greatest Eid of Allah, Eid Allah Al-Akbar. And we have to kind of think and analyze historically why the Prophet did this. Why did he proclaim that this celebration or this event is the greatest event in the history of the religion? And why does the verse of the Quran that relates to this event say that if the Prophet did not make this proclamation, then all of his message is nullified, is canceled? Why is it so important? If we look at that event and what happened after the Prophet's demise, we see that during the Prophet's life there were two types of people. There were those who believed that the Prophet was a man of God, someone who was connected spiritually, mentally, and existentially to the divine. someone who was purely connected to God, and therefore had this great communication where nothing that he would do or say is something that displeases God. On the other hand, he had people who were also his supporters. He had companions who believed that the Prophet was just a special person, someone who was knowledgeable, someone who was favored upon people. You know, when you look around, if you go to school, in your class, in your society, some people stand out. You think these people have the qualities of a leader. They have the qualities of someone who, is special in a certain area, maybe more special than you and more special than everyone else. You say they're charismatic, for example. So some companions saw that the Prophet was a charismatic figure, that, he claims that he hears a voice, and he named that voice Gabriel, and that Gabriel tells him what God is saying. Sometimes they might have truly believed that. They might not have believed it 100%, maybe 90%, 80%. But anything else in his life, they considered him to be a normal human being. So a lot of the times when the Prophet would make a suggestion, some of these companions would come and want to correct the Prophet. The Prophet in battle, for example, would say, let's do so and so. One of the companions would come and say, hey, I have another idea. How about we do this other thing? Sometimes the Prophet in the house, he would tell the people to bring them a paper and a pen so that he writes for them a book that will protect them from misguidance forever. And that famous event created a lot of problems in the Prophet's house. Argumentation happened, and the Prophet had to kick them out of the house eventually. So this is the other school, or the other party during that time. Some people like Imam Ali alayhi salam, who believed that the Prophet, every movement he made was the best move. To the point that they say when the Prophet and Imam Ali walked together, there would only be one footprint. And that's because the Prophet would walk and Imam Ali would step in the exact position or point that the Prophet stepped in. Because the Imam believed that this man is so perfect that even the way he walks and where he walks is the best way to walk and the best place to step in. He was that devoted. That's why he was carrying that knowledge. On the other hand, you have people who didn't believe that, who thought he was just charismatic, and some people thought he was just a good leader because he united the Arabs. For the longest times, the Arabs were killing each other. They had tribes, and until this day, we have the tribal system in many of the Arab countries. People were killing each other. People were divided. And if you look at the Bedouin lifestyle, that's how they used to live economically. So when they lose money, or economically they're doing bad, what they would do is they would go attack another tribe. And usually they will choose the weaker tribe, they'll attack it, and they'll steal everything from it. And then when they grow and they prosper, another tribe that's stronger than them might come and attack them and take their stuff. So this is the kind of life that they lived, the Bedouins. Then you have the civilized ones who lived in the city, but they belonged to many different factions, different family tribes. Over 20 family tribes belonged at that time in Mecca alone. So the Prophet came. For the first time, he was able to unite everybody together. And once he did that, a lot of people said, you know what? This is a great thing that he did. Let's just wait until he dies, and then we take over, and we control the situation, and we control the government after him. So those people existed at that time. So we see when we look at the Prophet's life, there were different people, different factions with different mentalities and different types of devotions to him. Now, if we fast forward to our time right now, and we look at the life that we're living here, let's look at this scene that we're living, and then try to go back and try to understand what the Prophet did at that time and see why he did certain things. If we look at our history as human beings, the Prophet ﷺ left this world. The Imams came after. They were unable to govern because of the political situations at that time. So the nation, according to the belief that the Imam should be the leaders, the nation became separated. If you look at the Quran, there are so many different interpretations of each and every verse. If you look at the theology, the belief system of Islam, so many different positions. You have the Mu'tazilis, you have the Ash'aridas, you have this, you have that. So many divisions within the Islamic nation. Look at prayer. The thing that the Muslims do 5 times a day, the Prophet did 5 times a day, every single day. This thing that you would expect that all the Muslims, at least that would have survived, did not survive. Even that was altered and changed. If we fast forward and we come to our contemporary times, we look at the development of human thought, and we see, for example, that in Europe in the 1500s, there was a movement called the Enlightenment. I'm sure most of you are aware of this phase because we study in history, in Western history. The Enlightenment was a time where humans, at least in the Western part of the world, which was Europe at that time, believed that they are ready to move beyond religion. And at that time, part of the church became corrupt. People in Europe were in the Dark Ages, right? They called it the Dark Ages. A lot of people were dying at very young ages. Sickness was, spread everywhere in Europe. People used to say that if you walked in the streets of Europe, the smell and the odor of the animals, the horses, and what they leave on the streets was so bad that you would suffocate from it. People were just getting sick. The average lifespan was about 30-something at that time. So people were getting sick, people were dying. They called it the Dark Ages, living in ignorance. And people were resorting to the church at that time. And this is a summary, of course. I'm obviously generalizing over here. And the church would give them prayers, it would give them things to do, it would ask them to pay some money, ask them to do this, ask them to do that. And people realized that it's not helping them. This is not resolving the problem. So there was a group of people who began this Enlightenment movement, philosophers. They began opening books, writing, researching, and they began developing medicine. Science was the new thing at that time. You get sick? Hey, try this medicine. Don't go to the priest. Try this. And they would try it, and it would cure them. And people started, that's the first moment of questioning. Why is this man-made thing working, and why isn't that godly thing working? So people began shifting and moving because they're seeing some practical results on the ground. Now, that doesn't mean that the church or God is bad. It could be a wrong understanding of religion. It could be a wrong understanding or a corrupt understanding of what faith is supposed to mean. Obviously, when we lived during the COVID times not too long ago, the same or a similar debate occurred. Not exactly the same, but a similar one occurred. Do people visit the shrines during COVID? Aren't we supposed to be protected there? Do we come to the masajid? Are the masajid immune from this virus? Why doesn't God protect the masjid from this virus if he's so powerful and he's controlling everything? A similar debate occurred. But alhamdulillah, it wasn't as bad because the dynamics are a bit different from how it was back then. So that Enlightenment period shifted the human thought from religion to science. And there were a number of tenets of beliefs. So for example, as a Muslim, you believe in Tawheed, in prophecy, Nubuwwah. You believe as a Shia, you believe in Imamah, you believe in resurrection. Enlightenment, when it produced the philosophy of modernism, there were a number of set beliefs that philosophy had. Number one, it relied on rationality, reason, the mind. I don't want to say the intellect. They call it the intellect, but there's a linguistic debate over what the intellect really means. Let's call it reason. Whatever agrees with your reason is accepted. Whatever doesn't agree with reason is rejected. This was the main tenet, the main belief. So what do we do with religion? What do we do with things that are unseen? Religion claims there are angels, claims there's a soul, it claims that there are things that are beyond the physical eye. Do we believe that those exist or no? Well, this movement came to deny these things. It said that, obviously we can't see them. There's no reason for us to believe that they exist. So there was this radical reaction to religion. And one of the main things that it came with was this idea of having reason as opposed to faith. Fast forward to our time right now. The time that we live in is not modernism anymore. Now we're living in a phase called postmodernism. And this phase began in the mid-1900s. It began in the arts at the beginning. You have postmodern art. I'm not sure if you visited the Art Museum in Detroit or other art museums. You can obviously see postmodern art over there. It's clearly identified as postmodern art. It began in literature and art, and then it seeped into philosophy and other fields as well. Postmodernism, from the word, you would understand that, it moved beyond modernism. And that's the time that we live in right now. A lot of what we see around us, in order to understand why things are the way they are, we really have to go to the root of things. Why, for example, do we have the debate over gender? Why do we have the debate over masculinity? Why do we have the debate over anything that we have right now, for example, New Age spirituality and religions? How suddenly all of these debates started to emerge? Did they come out of nowhere? Did we wake up in the morning and suddenly humanity decided that there's not only two genders, there's many, many, many genders? Did we just wake up and, no. This is a process, this is a movement. And in order for us as communities and people of faith and as human beings, we have to study the roots of this movement in order to understand how we can confront it, but first understand it. So if we go towards postmodernism, the first tenet of belief in modernism, which is reason, postmodernism rejects it. So imagine, the thing that they used to reject faith, now humans are rejecting that. Hey, who told you reason is everything? There's something that's beyond reason. There's something called emotions. Emotions are not reason. I feel that this is a bad thing. If you use reason would tell you, hey, your feeling has nothing to do with this. There has to be an objective reality. Either it's right or wrong. Your feeling is not part of the equation. Now, postmodernism came and said, hey, wait a second, why are you denying such an important aspect of the human being? We are not just made out of a brain. We're not just made out of reason. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have this, we have that. So how about we say that reason is not the thing that depicts or tells us what reality and truth is? That's one thing that they removed or they have attacked. So when you look at this attack on reason, you find that, okay, feeling becomes such an important thing. Why? Because feeling could also tell us what the truth is. Now, wait a second. Is there a truth or no? In modernism, yes, there is a truth. And you reach truth through reason. Now, if you remove reason, which is an objective way of measuring, it's like a ruler, right? You have numbers. This is either 2 inches or 3 inches. That's what reason does. It has a set of rules, logical way of thinking. So you can tell if this is a 5-inch tile or a 12-inch tile. Reason can help you do that. But if you remove reason, are you able to reach any truth? Or no? This is another thing that postmodernism said, that, hey, there's no one truth. There are many, many truths. And actually, it's whatever you are able to perceive as a truth is what the truth is. Who is to say that whatever, that philosopher said is true and what someone else said is not true? Who gives that person the right to claim truth for themselves? So you remove reason, and now you have an unlimited amount of truth. There's as many truths as there are people. So there's no reference point for truth anymore, right? And this is what they call relativism. There's no more objective reality, it's all subjective. There's no more absolute reality, it's all relative. So when it comes to gender, for example, I'm just using this as an example because it's very common right now. Who is to say that there are only 2 genders? Who is to say that you should either be a male or female? What do you feel? This is an important aspect of your life as a human being. This is what they would say. Well, do you feel like you're a male? No, I don't. Do you feel like you're a female? No, I don't. Do you feel like you're this? No. What do you feel? Whatever you feel, we give weight to that. Why? Because we don't have any more objective measure for reality. We've denied that. We've removed it. This has happened in the arts. This has happened in in other fields of science as well. If you look at, for example, this new movement of New Age spiritualism, how about religion? Is religion rejected? Well, in modernism, religion was held in a very negative way. Atheism was growing during the modernist period. Why? Because God, as an idea, goes against reason, according to them. Now, you remove reason, somehow this idea of religion comes back into the scene. Because humans, when science developed, they were projecting that religion is going to end. by the 1900s or even earlier, that would be the end of religions, that humans are going to emerge out of this. Their reason and their mind is going to develop so much that they're going to reject these silly notions of religion. But you look at the reality today, religion is still there. You still have Christians, you still have Jews, you still have Muslims, you still have Hindus, Buddhists. In fact, you even have new religions that are coming into the scene. So how come religion didn't leave the human scene? How come it resisted and still exists until this day? You have humans right now that are debating whether the earth is flat or round, right? I'm sure most of you have heard of this debate, the flat earth theory. It's a big thing. Millions of people believe that the earth is flat. Now, is it flat or is it round? Well, these people will tell you, maybe it's round, maybe it's flat. How do you perceive it? We don't have a criteria to determine. So when you do this, the problem with it is it allows for the multiplicity of opinions, right? It allows for a Muslim to exist. It allows for a Christian. It allows for an atheist. It's good in one sense, but in the other sense, it allows for every possibility that you feel you're not grounded in any reality anymore. So what do? Do I accept religion as a full package, Islam, for example? Or can I take parts of Islam and parts of Hinduism? I'll do some yoga here. I'll do some prayers here. I'll read the Quran here. I'll read, this book here. Is that acceptable? The New Age spiritualist movement says this is what we're going to do, because postmodernism doesn't believe there's an absolute truth. There are truths. There are different interpretations. There's as many truths as there are people. So if they see a nice thing here, they'll take it. They'll see a nice there, they'll take it. And this is why you find also in our communities and in other religious communities, and even in the political field or online in general, that whenever there's a topic and you read the comments on that topic, there are so many experts nowadays on every single topic. Any video you open on YouTube, it could be about anything. It could be the most complex thing that's not even explored yet. Yet you go onto the comment section and there are like thousands of specialized people that have opinions about these things. And you think, how did humans allow themselves to give an opinion about anything nowadays? Well, this is also part of that shift. So if we don't understand the shift in movement, we're not going to be able to face the challenges that we have as a community. Why does every person want to interpret the Quran on their own? Now, going back to the Prophet's time, when he claimed that Imam Ali is the successor and that he is with truth and that truth is with Ali and they revolve with each other wherever they go, he was trying to make a reference point for knowledge and truth. Because if you don't do that, then you open the door for postmodernism, which is the ability to claim anything, and anything will go. And that's what happened after the Prophet's demise. If you open any tafsir, any commentary on the Quran, and you look into the commentary on any verse, you will not find one agreement over that verse. These people think that they can make up their own understanding. Is this haram or is that halal? Well, there's one answer. But the jurists, after the Prophet's death, because they didn't follow the Imams, they began developing their own methods to come up with their own answers. And they had to create schools for that. Well, if there's no prophet, this is one argument one of the schools makes. If there's no prophet, we have no access to the truth, then whatever we say, God will make that the truth. That's one opinion. This is one of the schools in the Islamic world. So these things begin developing. And we fast forward to our days now, and we realize how difficult it is. People don't feel like they're grounded in anything. What should I do in my life? A lot of the youth grow up not knowing what to do anymore. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do this? Do I do that? They're confused. There's no clear answer. So this is something that we have to be aware of. We have to be aware that, without having a reference point, we're going to lose direction. We're going to spend a lot of our lives in trying to discover the truth about things, but we won't. The more we dig, the deeper we get, and we're never going to reach anything, because this is the nature of reality, of existence. It's an infinite existence, and you have to have a reference point for knowledge. You have to choose one for yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to be revolving around different things, going in spirals, and not reaching any specific goal or point in your life. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, another thing that postmodernism also does is this idea of fragmentation. You know, the idea of nuances. And this is something I'm going to mention, and inshallah I'll end with this last point. If we look at, for example, the fields of psychology, for example, or even the fields of medicine, or even philosophy or religion. But mainly, let's look at psychology. If we look at postmodernism, it rejects what modernism brought as universals or things in totality. So, for example, if you have a category before, now you remove categories. Why did this person, for example, rob that bank? Or why did this person, for example, hit their friend or hit their mother? You come and you start analyzing the human being in a very fragmented way. Okay, let's see the generational trauma. That's one thing. Let's see the personal trauma. Let's see what happened with their mother. Let's dissect what happened with their brother. Were they abused? Were they, for example, did they go to school and were they yelled at by the teacher? Did they, eat cereal for breakfast, and cereal is not a good thing for your body? Were they given too much chicken? Were they this? Were they that? This idea of fragmentation and going into too much detail about everything is what postmodernism is also about. And the problem with that is it doesn't allow you to reach any conclusion. You start thinking that you can justify anything. The end result of it is this. That no matter what a person does, if you dissect every part of their life, you're going to find a reason, a justification for that type of behavior. But that's not how humans function. We don't function on that level of intricate detailness. And this is why the scholars of the past, they had the opposite idea. They had that the more you can generalize and make universal categories, the better you can resolve your problems. If you make your problems 1,000, then you're going to have to resolve 1,000 problems. If you categorize all your problems into one big problem and deal with that, then you can resolve your problems. It's the exact opposite of how our scholars were in the past. They were categorizing in universals, and now we're doing in fragmentations. So you find that we're dealing with symptoms, this symptom, that symptom, and you start developing solutions for every single symptom. And you become overwhelmed in a way. How do I fix my life? It's too complicated. I've been through too many things in my life. Really, if you think about your life, every second could be traumatic. You could make a trauma out of every moment in your life. So what do you do then? You can't get out of your trauma. You can't get out of your problem. Well, exactly. That's why there were people who were scholars and dealt with the human self and soul before that opposed this method. And they said that we have to deal with things, again, like the idea of Tawheed. God put all the problems of the world into one issue. Believe in the oneness of reality, that everything is connected to each other, that you resolve this, everything else in your life would be resolved. If you connect with your inner self, that ultimate absolute reality, you would resolve everything outside of yourself and within yourself. Don't go looking into these details here and there. I need a God for the rain. I need a God for the wind. I need a God for my food. I need a God for this. I need a God for that. So now I have to pay this God. I need to kill a sheep for this God to give me food. I got to kill a monkey for that God to give me this. I got to do this. No. Now you're multiplying your problems. And really, you're multiplying the complexity in your mind. And we're not built to handle this much. We're not. We're limited. Our brain capacity is limited. So the more we can gather things together, the easier it becomes to resolve our issues. And I think this is the summary, in one sense, of what Tawheed came to do. Of course, it's much more detailed than that, but we can take this as a lesson in order for us to at least understand how to navigate ourselves in our contemporary challenges. What do I do when myself and my brain and my mind are scattered? Well, let me find one way to unify them. Let me find a way to tackle my issues as a whole instead of tackling them on a very small and fragmented level. And maybe that would be able to help me overcome my problems and improve in my life. I'll end on this note. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to see the reality of the message that he brought forth to us, and that he opens our hearts to accepting this truth and being able to resolve our inner problems through his guidance and assistance without seeking assistance from anyone else. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.